And welcome back to my channel, unless you're new here, and then just welcome. My name is Rusty, and this is my channel where I talk about my favorite movies, mostly horror. And we are going to finish up this little mini water horror shark fest with not a shark. This is Beneath. This movie was so fucking awesome. This movie is so good. I loved this movie. It has all the most wonderful kinds of stupid. But at the same time, it's also got really cool stuff. So, Beneath, this is the Scream Factory remaster of it. And the transfer is like really beautiful. This is directed by Larry Fessenden. Larry Fessenden. If you don't know who that is, he was Nick in, where did I get Fassbender from? There's somebody named that. But he was Nick in You're Next. He made that movie, Depraved. You know, the Frankenstein in the apartment building in New York? The guy that made a Frankenstein dude. But yeah, he's all over horror. He has been in a huge amount of horror movies. He's produced a lot of horror movies, and he's directed quite a few horror movies. This was written by Tony Daniel and Brian Smith, and it stars Bonnie Dennison, Daniel Zovatto, and Jon Orsini. And yeah, this movie was so much fun. I told you, mediocre, awesome, better mediocre, awesome. This is great. This is really great. It's so cheesy in all the right ways, but it's also just really fun. I mean, really, really fun. So, we're introduced in this movie, we're introduced to Johnny, who's waking up from a bad dream about some chick named Kitty. And, I guess he's swimming with her, and you see some creature come up behind her, and he wakes up. He's then getting ready for a final outing with his high school friends, which seems to be an oxymoron by the end of this movie. He's having a final outing with his high school friends. They just graduated last week. So they're going to go to a place called Black Lake, where they are going to hang out on the beach or on the shore and camp and have a final hurrah before they all go off their separate ways into whatever shithole life is going to drop them. So that's what they're going to do. And we see them arrive there. We have Simon, Matt, who are brothers. We have Zeke and Debbie. And then, of course, we have Kitty and Johnny. And they all head out there. So they brought a boat. They're going to take a boat across the lake. And they're going to camp out on the side of the lake and have this final hurrah. So they arrive. We are introduced to, what's his name, Mr. Banks. You definitely will recognize him. He's a good character actor. I've seen him in a lot of stuff. But, he's this older guy and asks them, what are y'all doing here? And you kind of know that something must be going on because he's like, why are y'all here? And Johnny's like, we're going to go do this. And he's like, you know better than that. And he's like, well, it'll be all right. We're just going to go across, and he's like, you're not supposed to go out on that lake and stuff like that. So he knows his dad. He knows this guy. And so there's obviously something on. And interestingly enough, he was wearing this talisman necklace with like a big, looked like it wasn't a shark's tooth, but it's that kind of necklace, but it's a different kind of tooth. And he's wearing that, and he tries to get Kitty to put it on before they go across the lake. And she's like, that's weird. I'm not with you. This isn't high school anymore. I'm with Matt. So she is dating Matt. That's her boyfriend. So they get into the boat, and they go, and they get like halfway out there, and then Matt's like, all right, and they stop the boat. And he's like, time is here, to weed out the, strong people from the weaklings or whatever. And he's like, we're going to go swimming. And that freaks Johnny out because Johnny's like, we're not supposed to do that. I mean, that's not what we came out here for. Blah, blah, blah. But he don't want to say nothing. But they end up going ahead. So Matt and Debbie and Kitty, they go swimming. And the whole time, Zeke is such a cool little geek. He's got this little GoPro that he's got on his hand all the time, and he's filming everything. So Simon and Johnny and Zeke stay in the boat while the other three go swimming. And it don't take long before, you think something's attacking the boat, bumping it underneath there, but it turns out to be Matt joking with him, and then he goes back out there. And then the boat starts getting hit again, but all three of them are out there, so it can't be them now. And that's when the shit starts. It's this big, creepy, fish-looking monster, and it looks pretty cool up close. I mean, you can tell it's fake, but then again, you can tell Jaws is fake too, you know what I'm saying? And like I've told people, I wrote a physical review for this and for No Way Up on my Letterboxd and my International Movie Database. So I don't do a lot of written reviews, but if I see that the movie doesn't have but 100 or something, I will add mine just to give people a different perspective. But so they end up realizing that something's going on. You finally see the monster, and they see it, and they start coming, and they all manage to get back into the boat, except it nips, or you think it nips Debbie, and it gets her right here. And, they climb into the boat, and then they're like, what the hell was that? And then one of them notices her and is like, are you okay? And then she notices the blood. Well, it hit an artery, I don't know if y'all know physiology, but there's arteries in your thighs and up under your arm there that might be it's just like somebody cut your jugular vein. You know what I'm saying? And you cut them open and you will bleed out. So she just starts gushing blood, and she ends up, they try to stop it. They try to but sort of like Jed in No Way Up, she ends up being noticed, and it's not too long before she just bleeds the fuck out. And they, so they're there with a dead body on this boat. So 1 down, 5 to go, right? So they're laying there with their body. They don't know what to do. This creature is coming up to the boat. It's not really hiding. You get to see a lot of this creature, and it's pretty good for a practical effect. Since we all know these things don't really exist, of course it's not real. But it looks a little cheesy in a couple shots, but in the rest it looks alright. It's alright. It's not what's carrying this movie anyway. I saw that in someone else's review. I think someone else wrote in a review I saw where it said, they didn't even need the odd looking fish because the monsters in the boat were all the monsters you needed. And that is no lie, as we will see. But it was actually, they're stuck there with her. They don't know what to do. This thing is coming around the boat, and they're trying to hit it with the oars and all of this kind of stuff. It busts one of the oars, it grabs it, because of course it's fighting back. They do manage it breaks another one, and he stabs it with it. So for the whole rest of the movie, the creature's running around with this big oar sticking out of its back. But obviously it didn't hurt it bad enough to hurt it. So they're basically stuck out there in a lake with no current. And they don't know what to do because they can't get to shore. And it's not a tiny lake either. It's pretty big. So that's when the stuff happens. And I wrote in my review, in the written review, it was about this time that I really started feeling Lifeboat, Alfred Hitchcock's Lifeboat. That is basically what this movie is, but it's a horror movie with a sea monster, or a water monster. But it's got all of it's Lifeboat from Alfred Hitchcock. And that just kept coming through my head. I was like, this is so much like Lifeboat, They're arguing about what to do, and these are supposed to be a group of high school friends, right? And they're arguing about what to do. And finally Zeke comes up, he's like, well, we should get it distracted. Well, how are we going to distract it? Put Debbie in the water. Okay, well, I mean, that's not like super bad betrayal, I mean, she's dead, but still it's gross, and a couple of them even say, but her family would like her body, I'm sure. I mean, really, dude. But it's like, what else can we do? So they put Debbie's body in there, and the fish does come up, and it does, like, eat her, which was a pretty cool thing. And they do try then to paddle with their hands, and try to and they do manage to make a little progress, but not much, because it finishes her off pretty quick. If you see that the thing's mouth, it probably, make quick work of her. But it starts coming back and they have to stop. You got to get your hands out the wall. So a bunch more tension and stuff, and you can see like all of these little underlying likes and dislikes and betrayals and shit goes on between these people. And that's when I think Zeke is the one who did it again. And that is, he's like, well, the only idea I can think of now, of course, is that we have to have another distraction. Well, how can we have another distraction? Nobody's dead. We don't have anybody. And then that's when he suggests that they all vote someone off the boat. And I'm like, you're a group of high school friends? It's about that time that I started questioning, this group of friends don't seem, much fun. And they all start arguing with each other about who's more valuable, who's more important. Well, I'm going to be a famous, like Zeke. He's like, I'm going to do something with my life unlike you people. I'm going to be a famous director. And I'm like sitting there going, that's not a really good idea. I mean, all I know is if someone is sitting there in a boat wanting to vote someone off, and they're sitting there and they say something like that, you just got my vote. So, the dialogue is really, really good. The stuff that they're saying, and they're all trying to prove their worth, to not have to do it. And then they all turn on Johnny, right? Because Johnny is the one that got them out there. And they've already started suspecting, right, that he knew something was wrong with this lake and that something was in this lake. And he's like, well, it's just a myth, though. I didn't really believe it. Oh, really? Well, then what is that necklace that you're wearing? And you told her that it would protect her from what? That? And also, and then his only defense was, yeah, but I didn't know you fucking idiots were going to go swimming. We weren't supposed to do that. That wasn't part of the plan. Well, we probably wouldn't have went swimming if you'd have told us there's a fucking Loch Ness monster in here. So you see, that's the kind of stuff that's going on. It's very, very entertaining. But they all turn on him. Well, you should be the one to go since you're the cause, you're the one, the reason we're out here. Well, he just says, fuck you, I'll go anyway. And he did. He jumped in and he took off, and you don't really know what happened to him for now, because he never comes back up. And you assume the creature got him, and so they all start paddling and they try to get further, and the beast comes back. Like it always does, and they have to stop again. And there's more fighting, and there's more interpersonal relationship stuff. Really interesting, though. And more backstabbing. And they start doing the vote again. And this time they're all like voting for Zeke, and he's freaking out, and so he starts telling them that Simon, remember, Matt and Simon are brothers, and he starts telling Matt that she and Simon have been sleeping together and doing things behind his back, and that he's got video proof of it and stuff like that. And I'm like, these people are getting really nasty to each other. Which, I don't know, I really don't blame them. If somebody's just going to throw your ass to a Loch Ness monster type creature, you'll probably get pretty nasty. But it's very difficult to watch scenes with these people doing this to each other, and they were supposed to be these wonderful, loving group of high school friends that have been together for a long time. But they do end up throwing Zeke in, and that was kind of hard to watch because of the way he reacts to it. But at the same time, you're like, you're a little twat anyway. So I don't know. You're very conflicted in this movie, you know what I mean? Because you don't like any of them. But at the same time, you like them as characters. You like them as characters. I mean, who doesn't like a character to hate? You know what I mean? So he gets viciously eaten, and you get to see it through the lens of his GoPro, which was pretty cool. Then you see that Johnny did make it to shore, and he got up, he got out, and he found another boat with an outboard motor on it, right? So, which is probably what they should have took to begin with, you would think. If there was a boat with an outboard motor on it, why the hell wouldn't you take that rather than paddle your ass across a lake with a monster in it, yeah? But he gets that boat, he goes back out there, and they're all so happy to see him. The three that's left are all so happy to see him. That, they're like, yeah, come get us. And he's like, no. And you're like, what? And also, that creature's knocked a couple holes in the boat, so that boat's sinking as well. So, I agreed with Johnny when he's like, y'all voted me off the boat. I'll tell you what I'll do. I will throw the rope to you, and I will pull you. Now, interestingly enough, I thought to myself, that boat doesn't look as big as the boat that you're throwing the rope to, or is that, and it's got water in it. Is that boat going to be able? I think that boat's too heavy for you to tow. You know what I'm saying? But it was like just a momentary flash that I thought that. But what's funny is that after he threw the boat to him, and they tied it, on the front, that's exactly what Matt said. He was like, when this rope tenses, he's not going to be able to pull us because we're too heavy. And I'm like, you know what? I thought that. He's not going to be able to pull us, and it's going to pull him back, and we'll get that damn boat. And I'm like, motherfuckers are just backstabbing each other. It's like, what the fuck? Well, that's exactly what happens, but not exactly like they thought. When he tries to pull him, the tension does jerk the boat. But it jerks the boat in a way, because remember, he's got the motor going. So it jerks the boat in a way that the boat starts spinning, right? Because it's trying to pull, but it can't. And the rope knocked Johnny off the engine, nearly knocked him out. And when he got back up, the rope caught him. And so this boat is spinning in a circle, and the rope's wrapping around his neck. And they could have saved his life. I mean, Kitty even got the hatchet that she had that was in the boat, right? So, Johnny's like, cut the rope, cut the rope, cut the rope, and she starts to, but then you hear like Simon going, she's such a bitch, she's not going to do it. Because, Matt was like telling her to do it, but Simon is like, no, don't cut the rope, we've got to get that boat. And Matt's like, yeah, but it'll kill him. He's strangling to death. And Simon's like, fuck him. We gotta live. And so he's like, Kitty, do it. And Simon's like, she is even more selfish than I am. She's not going to do it because that's our only way out from this monster. sure enough, the bitch just like stopped and didn't do it, and he was strangled to death on the boat. And then the fish attacked it. So they thought, cool, he's dead. We can pull the boat. Well, it doesn't work out that way because the fish attacks the boat, knocks the boat over, and sinks it, and eats Johnny as well. Or, oh no, he doesn't eat Johnny. But, so Johnny's like floating dead in the water, and I'm like, these people are so nasty. I don't like none of them. They all need to like die horrible, painful deaths, other than the side that they are so pretty. But we'll get to that later. So, I'm like blown away at how these people are stabbing each other in the back. While at the same time I got Alfred Hitchcock's Lifeboat in the back of my head going, this is like some really good dialogue. It's really funny. It's really good. So I'm really highly enjoying this movie. Then, so where were we? Oh, okay. So now you've just got the three of them. Johnny's dead. The boat's sunk. It's gone. It's like on, capsized. They can't get to it without getting in there with Munchie, with the Munchie fish. So they start turning on each other as well, because they've got to vote somebody else off, right? And, Simon's like, we've got to throw Kitty in the water. And Matt's like, yeah, but that's my girlfriend. Yeah, but you're my brother, and she's a slut anyway. Because what Zeke said was correct. We have been messing around behind your back, so see what a slut she is? So she should really go in there. Which then, and I'm like going, but you're his brother, and you're cheating on somebody with you're both cheating on him. You're his brother, and she's his girlfriend. Y'all are both fucking him over, is what I'm saying. So it's like, using that, I thought that was the funniest thing. Using that as an excuse to throw Kitty over, admitting that you were screwing your brother's girlfriend, is that really a good reason to do you really think that's going to get him to throw her over when it gives him just as much motive to throw you over? That's what I'm saying. So, they literally start fighting in the boat. Like, Simon takes a swing at him with a hatchet. I'm like, were you fixing to, like, cut your brother's head open? I mean, you people are desperately evil. I mean, it's like a whole boat full of Cordelias from Buffy the Vampire Slayer is what it is. And, so they're like fighting with each other, and then they stop fighting with each other, because, of course they're arguing with each other as they're fighting, and they do finally convince each other that Kitty's the one who needs to go, and they throw her ass in the water. And when she tries to come back on, like, Simon is like trying to hit her hands with the hatchet, like, don't do that. And I'm like, wow, you people are mean. So, she gets mad at that point, and she takes a big gulp of air, and she goes underwater, and she like disappears. And they're like waiting for her to, like pop up, right? So that the fish will eat her, so that they'll know the fish is busy, so they can try once again to swim to shore. But she doesn't pop up, and I'm like, well, I'm not falling for that another time, because I thought that about Johnny, and he turned up. So, so they start fighting and stuff like that. How does Matt get in the water? I think they start fighting even worse, but they both end up in the water. And then we see, the fish, he like tears that boat apart. That's how they end up in the water. They end up in the water, and we see that Kitty is still alive. She has crawled up on the capsized boat that Johnny was in. So she's out of the water. She's up on the boat. And Matt and Simon, who's got this big cut in his head, is like puking blood. They're trying to get to the shore, and Matt is actually stupid enough to try to save his brother and tow his brother with him, till his brother came to enough to start swimming himself, at which point Simon turned around with his feet and kicked Matt back into the fish, and then took off to the shore. And I'm like, wow. Simon was a dick. But then again, they've all been dicks. So Kitty, she starts thinking, well, there's Johnny's body floating. And she keeps wondering why is Johnny's body still floating, right? And then she's like, he tried to give me that necklace. So this little light bulb went off above her head. And she's like, maybe that is some kind of talisman, right? So she like manages to pull his body over and she puts that necklace on. And then she pushes his body back out there. And this time the fish does eat it. So that kind of makes her go, oh, this talisman does keep that fish away. So she jumps in the water and starts swimming. So we have a final boy and a final girl, right? Because Simon, he makes it to the shore, and then here comes Kitty. However, because you made me kill my brother, because of course when Kitty gets out, she's immediately like playing him. She like runs up to him, and he's like, you made me kill my brother and stuff like that. And she's like, no, baby, we'll be okay. We'll be together. But you just told me a while ago that you chose him over me. And so he strangles her and drowns her. And I'm like, okay. All right. So you think now this is the asshole that's going to live? However, when he turns around, because now it's gotten dark, when he turns around, there's these big truck lights, right? And a guy holding a flashlight. And then you see that it's that Mr. Banks, the guy from the beginning. The one that asked Johnny why they were out there. So Simon immediately starts like, help me. My friends have been attacked and there's this thing in the water, which is all true. But still, they've all attacked me. And he's like, yeah, I know. And he's like, well, then you've got to help us. And he's like, no, I don't think so. He said, well, it's not what you think. He's like, I know what you did. I've been watching you. And then, you see, back when Zeke got ate by the monster, you saw his arm, the one with the GoPro on the wrist. You saw his arm floating to shore, right? So Mr. Banks has his GoPro. He had found the arm. He had been watching the GoPro of all the shit that has went on in this boat, including the things they've done. And now has also been watching them do the stuff that they've done. So he pulls out a gun and he tells back in the water, you're not coming out here. You have to go back and find some other way out. And he's like, no. So he starts like shooting at him, right? He does pop him in the leg and makes him go back out there. And then you hear him get viciously eaten or get viciously attacked, which makes him come back to the light where you could see. And he's like got these big giant cuts across them, teeth marks, where that thing is doing that. But it's got a hold of him at the same time. So you get to see him and he's all like cut open and then the thing pulls him out. There's a lot of screaming. It's very hard to watch that part. Because, it was very painful. The screams from Zeke was painful too. This guy didn't pull no punches with this movie. So it may be a B-horror movie, but it was damn good. So Simon is drugged. The creature kills him and drags him back out into the water. And that's the way the movie ends. Now I went on and watched there's a big bunch of outtakes where you get to see the filming. And there's an entire, this Larry guy, he did another feature where he's the filming of the movie, and it was really, really neat to get to see them construct this practical effect creature and how it worked. You got to see so many of the scenes that you remembered from the movie being actually filmed. It was very interesting to see them film this movie, because it wasn't just your typical on the set thing. You got to see a lot of the actual filming of this movie and specific scenes and all, and how they did this and how they did that. In other words, Larry obviously didn't care about giving away all the special effects secrets. This movie is entirely practical. For practical effects lovers, you would love this movie. There's no computer generated nothing in this movie. And they did it very good. You know, the bodies, the creature itself. Like I said, there was a couple of points where I thought it looked cheesy, but it was just split second type thing. The rest of the time, it looked alright. It didn't look any worse than Jaws did as far as authenticity went. It was a weird looking critter. I know that. But, yeah. So, great special features. And then Zeke's got his own special feature on here where, because he talked about all the filming he did in school, so you get to see him do all kind of stupid stuff. He was going to make a movie called Zombies versus Werewolves versus Ninjas. And I'm like, and they actually show him trying to like film that or get prepared to film it. So there's some really cool special features on this release that was fun to watch, especially the filming of this movie. I've just never seen a filming be so detailed, and watching people actually film these scenes was really cool. So yeah, to the movie itself, another big point of this movie is, let me tell you, dude, this cast is gorgeous. I know, shallow. He's like, oh no, he's going to talk about some shallow part of it. I don't care. Look, I like a fine motherfucker, you know what I'm saying? And let me tell you, this is a gorgeous cast. Alright, the two girls are pretty, you know what I mean? But let me tell you, fucking Matt and Zeke and Johnny and, you know, all of them. Matt, Zeke, Johnny, and Simon. I mean, this is a beautiful cast. These are these are six extremely good looking people, I'm telling you. So if nothing else, you got plenty of eye candy to fantasize about while watching this movie. The lifeboat aspect of this movie, like Alfred Hitchcock's Lifeboat, was very, very interesting to be put into a B-movie creature feature water horror setting. Was very, very interesting. Now, like I told you, about halfway through the movie, or maybe not even halfway, but like halfway through the movie, I was like, you know, I can't find any of these motherfuckers worth liking. But in the end, you couldn't really have anything bad to say about Debbie because you didn't get to know her very well. She was the one that was bit and then bled to death on the boat. And Johnny really didn't do anything to anyone other than there was some accusations. You see, I can't call him a good guy because there were some logical accusations. You know, he was in love with Kitty. He's got Kitty's brother, boyfriend, and his boyfriend's brother, whom he knows are both after her. So there was a couple of suggestions during the movie that Johnny brought them out there on purpose to, if not do it this way, he was still bringing them to this lake. And he wanted Kitty to wear that talisman. Was he doing it because he cared about her alone? Or was he doing it because he knew somehow or another he had a plot to get rid of Matt and Simon? So I can't call Johnny a good guy because they're suspicious. You're sus, man. You're sus. So I can't call you a good guy. The only person you can call a good person in this movie is Debbie. And that's because she got killed before she could take part in any of the horrible betrayals that everybody did when they stabbed each other in the back. Would she have? I don't know. You know, flock, birds of a feather? Lay down with dogs? She was one of the 6 members of this team, and the other 5 were assholes. Backstabbing assholes. So was she as well? I don't know, but you never got to find it out, so there is no proof. You cannot condemn her. Same with Johnny. Do you know that he was doing something up? No, but he is still sus because he did know. Remember the dream at the very beginning? Remember the talisman? Remember that guy telling him, what are you doing out here? You know you shouldn't be out here? Was there ever any indication that he had brought them out there for some nefarious purpose? No. But because he was so after Kitty, this was her boyfriend and her boyfriend's brother. Brother, is that possible? Is it beyond a reasonable doubt possible? Yes. I can confirm that beyond a reasonable doubt, it is very, very possible that he was up to some no good, shady shit. But there's no proof of that. And he's dead now anyway. As a matter of fact, you just watched this discussion. There is no survivors in this movie. There is no final nothing. So that was another thing that I thought was very interesting. I would have to think for a minute. You can let me know if you know one. I'm not really sure I know of a horror movie in which nobody survives. I mean, I don't know if you could really count, like, Open Water. Because, you know, the two couple, I mean, we knew that before the movie started. There wasn't supposed to anybody survive. But I was, and like I put in my written review, I was like, you know, I think I was wrong like 3 times in the last act, in the final act. I thought it was going to end this way, and then it was like, oh, no, obviously not. Then I thought it was going to end this way, and I'm like, whoops, no, not, there goes that. Then I thought it was going to end another way, and I was like, no, okay, well, how the fuck is this going to end? So it really got me in that I thought I had it figured out in the final act, you know, how you know, my horror movie knowledge, I was going to like make my assumption, and I was wrong every time. I was like, okay, you got me. I don't know how this is ever going to end. And I was shocked when I didn't. I think it's because we always expect a survivor. We always expect a survivor or 2 or 3. You know what I mean? There's always survivors. There is no survivors in this movie. 6 went in, 6 stayed in. And the creature got away. You know, nobody did anything to the creature. Oh, Larry's got his own special feature on here. So like more backstory where he's playing a person like the Blair Witch. You know, he's playing like a blogger online who is like talking about this creature that's supposedly in Black Lake. And he even goes to what we know as Johnny and asks him, like, does he believe it? What does he know about it? And stuff like that. And then you actually get to see at the end of his little special feature where he's like, I've got to shut all this down. 6 kids were just murdered at that lake, or they just disappeared. Something went down. The cops are everywhere. I don't want to be involved in this. And so that was pretty cool, too. So you have these little, that Zeke feature and Larry's feature, the director of the movie, he did his own feature playing that podcaster. So you get this little backstory as well. Then you get all the behind the scenes stuff. It was really cool. This is a good experience. This movie was a really good experience and really fun. And it's probably the closest thing to fucking Lifeboat I've ever seen. Just in a, more horror kind of way. But yeah, I was really shocked. No survivors. How they turned on each other was amazing. I don't see how you remember me telling you about the review that I wrote where the person said they didn't even need the goofy fish because the monsters in the boat were even worse? Yeah, that's why there were no survivors. I mean, these people stabbed each other in the back, left and right, and everyone ended up dead. So this was definitely a big, like 8.2 out of 10. You know, I loved this movie. It was really interesting. It was my kind of cheese. It definitely goes in there with Cocaine Bear and really surprising little movies. They're B movies, not huge budgets, but they do what they can, and great actors, great cast. Yeah, great cast, great acting. I love the practical effects. I love the dialogue. Great writing. I love the direction. It was fantastic. It was just a good one. So we end this little Shark Fest on a good note. And that is this awesome movie called Beneath. So there you have this little shark fest. We have the two mediocre movies. This one would be the bottom, like a 6.2. This is like a 6.8. And then you have these two wonderful, awesome movies, and that is No Way Up and Beneath. Beneath is phenomenal. No Way Up is phenomenal. So, yeah. And I'm glad to have these two, too. I didn't say they were, like, terrible and I want them gone. I just wish there was more. They could have been so much better. But, love you, miss you, bye. I will be back with another zombie fest, a little mini zombie fest. But didn't you just do one of those, like, recently, like 2 months ago or something? Yeah, well, I've got more. So, I'm going to do what I want to do, and I'm going to do 4 more zombie flicks. So, yeah, I'll see you then. Love you, miss you, bye-bye. Let me know if you've seen any of these, what you think about them, and always remember, never forget you're a very, very special person, and don't let anyone ever tell you differently. Bye.